So you would think that after all of these years of improved information, the internet, sports that allow us to see, contact, martial arts, prove validity, you would think that the number of McDojos would just completely vanish. You'd think they would just be gone. But they're not. And you would start to wonder to yourself, why can McDojos still exist? Like, why can they get away with what they're doing still? And the answer is, there's kind of a lot of reasons they can't.
Perfect.
So McDojos are like this thing that seem very foreign to anyone who's not a part of a McDojo. Like, what? How do you get this and think that it's helpful or useful? So I wanted to make sure that I got this exactly right. Sorta. Roughly. So I asked Rob from McDojo Life to give us a pretty good idea of what criteria makes a McDojo a McDojo. So what we're going to do is everything that he says, I'm going to kind of give a reason why the instructors can force it to happen, why students still sign up, and then why as a community we allow it to happen. And then for each of those reasons, I'm going to try and give a pretty decent explanation on some of them. There's some of them that you just can't explain. You just can't explain. So without any further ado, Rob, hit him with the facts.
Hey guys, Rob here with McDojo Life. Sensei Seth asked me to send in our version of what we call a McDojo, and we have 5 very specific rules. Here they are. Rule number 5, no touch knockouts or mislabeling techniques. We all know no touch knockouts are when you do the magic voodoo and the person falls over. Obviously that's fake, but when it comes to mislabeling techniques, there's a real danger there. If somebody says they're teaching you self-defense and it doesn't actually apply to self-defense, that could give you a false sense of security and get you hurt.
No touch knockouts are the get rich quick, the get slim quick, and I think there's a misconception about the get blank quick, right? This is like a get safe quick, but in all actuality, it's not about quick at all. It's about easy. It's about the ease of getting rich, slim, happy, safe in this situation. By giving people an option to not even have to touch anybody and still keep themselves safe, people are going to want to do that. Easily manipulated people are going to want to do that. They're going to want that option. It's literally just like making yourself a superhero, being like, I keep other people safe. Don't you want to be safe? Like, you're in good hands, the State Farm guy. Are you in good hands? What these instructors do is as they start this culture, like the system is unbeatable because they create compliant students who believe it and then enforce it as they get older. Like, they become the ones who are showing that it's unbeatable. And the way you make something unbeatable is by never trying it. If I go like this, 2 + 2 definitely equals 5. And I just don't hear anything else, or I don't ever say it out loud and like let people correct me, or if I just don't hang out with people who know that 2 + 2 equals 4. You know what I mean? It's very easy to be right in my own head, because if I don't open myself up to hear other people, then I'm never going to be wrong. In martial arts, so like you can understand after a while why that's one, enticing to people who want the ease. Okay, so I have an MBA in marketing. The best way to get an advantage over another competitor is to make things faster, easier, or more valuable. Let's just go ahead and boop that one right out of there. That one's gone. That one's very gone. Let's take value out of there right now. Obviously, that's not the case for this situation. Faster is like teaching a smaller amount of things so people can progress through belt ranks easier. I don't think that makes you a McDojo. As long as you're honest about what your curriculum is, I don't think that makes you a McDojo. So then we have the ease. The ease is what they're going for here. They are in a market where they're making things as easy as possible for their students. And when I say as easy as possible, I mean like it's not hard to practice this stuff, and it's portraying that it's easy for you to keep yourself safe. So that's what they're looking for there. Now, moving on from no-touch knockouts, some of the other McDojos that get away with these kind of like ludicrous techniques happen because of mannequin training instead of sparring. Now, when you have mannequin training, it's a step and a punch, and then they stand there. And the guy's like, pop, 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 and then kicks him in the head, and then kicks him in the groin, and then kicks him on the inside of the leg. And meanwhile, the guy's like this. all with their arms still out. If you see it happen when it's slow, like when you're teaching something and you teach a kid something and you're like, oh, well, what if I do this and then this and then this? You're like, well, sure, but it's the if he, then I. Like, if they, then I. If they do this, then I see this opening, this opening, this opening while he's standing still, and I'm going to take all three of them. And that's really cool in theory. Again, in theory, when you don't pressure test it, when you don't put it to work, like, this is a great shovel. It just is. I'm never going to try it. But because I can, like, I could scoop it. Yeah, sure. I could absolutely scoop it. It would be pretty easy to scoop things. This would be fine. That's perfect. I'm going to make that the next shovel. And what you do is you sell it and you tell people, this is too legit of a shovel to use. You're going to lose all of your mulch, everything that is in the ground, because this is so good of a shovel. Like, it's this ludicrous idea that you can do something so well that you should never do it. And something in theory that would work really well if the bad guy did exactly you are trying to teach. Like, if they actually stood there and threw this arm out, then everything you did would work. And it would hurt, because a person who's standing still is very easy to beat up.
Rule number 4, unsafe training practices or cult-like behavior. If you're in a martial arts studio and they're having you do things that are extremely dangerous and detrimental to your health, you should probably leave.
So the unsafe practices come from, in my opinion, like a weird place of there's still a strange ego-driven masculinity type deal that happens in martial arts, which can like let you get away with this kind of stuff. And the unsafe practices, the first thing that comes to mind is like where they have the students lined up and they're just like hitting them in the head to condition them for CTE, I guess. But the conditioning is such a BS thing, and it happens because students are like, oh man, my sensei's so sick. He's so cool. Like, I want to be more like him. I want to believe in this superhero that he makes himself out to be. I don't know any better. Beat me up, homie. That's what somebody did to you. Sign me up. I'm gonna get beat up. Like, this makes me tougher because I go through more pain. It's hard to distinguish important pain, discomfort from pain, like unneeded pain. Those unsafe practices that are just gonna get people hurt. Sparring hard without gloves, face conditioning. You know, the very extreme things that people go through. Putting children into a cement truck and then making them walk on their hands and feet. Looking at you, Mr. Lawrence. So if you're new, you might not know any better. Or you might want to live up to the standards of your super sick superhero sensei. Like, you don't want to speak up and be that guy. Either they quit and they don't say anything about it ever again, or they could have just been like, that's a weird thing that I don't want to be a part of anymore. And what happens is the students who stay are the students who either decided this is going to make me better at what I want to get better at, or they decide, okay, or they think in the back of their head, okay, I just don't get it yet because I'm not as cool as he is, or I just don't get it yet. I'm going to get there though. So I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. Or what he's having us do, she's having us do, whoever it is.
Rule number 3, shady business practices. If your martial arts studio is hiding things from you and then magical charges start to appear, there's a problem.
The shady business practice, the stuff like that, it comes down to novelty. If there's one dojo in the whole town of however many people that live there, if there's one dojo, you can get away with more. You have a monopoly on that town, which means you can provide more shady business practices. You can do this, you can do that. You can exclude women from your classes. You can do really sketchy stuff because as a community, they might not be familiar with it, or if it's a smaller dojo, you're going to have less people who care about it because your culture, when it's smaller, it can be way more defined. It can be more culty, you know what I mean? Those shady business practices can happen because usually if you have an extreme, most people are going to just not involve themselves with it. And the people who are involved with it are going to be very involved with it because it's easier to influence people who are into it.
Rule number 2, lying about your belt rank or fight record. If you lie about your belt rank or your fight record, chances are good you'll probably lie about just about anything else in your studio.
So when you lie about belt rank, like it can happen because, especially in like traditional martial arts, belts are designed to show validity from dojo to dojo. Like it's designed to be your own goal-oriented system. Here's all the things that I'm going to teach you. Here are the checkpoints for you to decide when you've like ranked up, right? Primarily it's for teachers to be able to split students up by skill level. It gives you a pretty easy way to like distinguish students on how they need to be taught. Now, the reason this becomes an issue is because I could say that I got my black belt. I mean, let's do this actually, for example. I have a black belt from my father. You have no idea how legit my father is. Could he still kick me in the head? Yes, absolutely. That's not really the point we're trying to make here. The point we're trying to make is that you don't have to know how good my lineage is. Frankly, there's, for a lot of like traditional martial arts, for a lot of like modern stuff that people create, especially the creation of martial arts styles, there's no like upholding standard. There's no consistency, which is okay. I'm cool with belts. Belts, for me, I think people give too much power to belts, especially when it's dojo to dojo. I do see it as more of like a checkpoint, like a goal for you to achieve, not a indicator of your skill level, your badassery, your whatever it is. Now, when we talk about fight record's a very different subject. And he mentions if you can lie about fight record, you can lie about anything. I agree with that. I think that's very spot on. Fight record, I think too many people pull like Charlie Zelenoff's and they're like, oh yes, fight record is 217-0. And like maybe they're talking about just kind of moving around and like slap boxing, or maybe they're like, oh, in the street fight, I've been in 17,000 street fights. And then like, of course, you've got the people who are just going to inflate things and make things that are very small seem very big. So like something that was a small verbal confrontation, if they walked away from it, they'd be like, yeah, that was a win in a street fight. Which I mean, like, sure, I guess, but like, why does that need to be recorded? Anyway, and then you have like the same people who are like, you know, when they have a conversation, they're like, oh yeah, I've broken like 6 bones. How many bones have you broken? They're like, 212. And you're like, 212? Yeah, 3 of them were mine. It's those type of people who inflate to make seem things more valued, more legit, because they're compensating for whatever skills or, you know, actual attributes they don't have.
Rule number 1, pedophiles. Believe it or not, pedophilia is rampant in the martial arts community. Don't believe me? Look it up on Google.
Obviously, martial arts schools are 99.99% of the time awesome, but you don't want to be the person who's put in that situation where they weren't paying attention to the instructor or red flags and find yourself in a bad situation. I'm not going to say too much about this one. Parents, please keep an eye out. Make sure that you're paying attention to red flags or noticing things. Instructors, as parents, as a community, keep an eye out for things like that and do our best to make sure that we can thwart it ideally before it happens. You know what I mean? And obviously we have less McDojos now than we did in the past. We have less people who are like, we have more light that's being shined on this darkness. Now, let's break this into like 3 groups. We're going to do a big review. 3 groups that allow McDojos to still exist. Group number 1, obviously the instructors. When the instructors create an ecosystem to hurt you and then convince you that what they did was easy to hurt you because you were compliant, like it obviously it's easy to hurt someone who's compliant. And then they create that culture of people who were like, no, see, this hurts, doesn't it? And you're like, ow, geez, that did hurt. Huh. That would keep me safe. Let's just go based off of the stuff that hurts me. In some cases, act like it hurts me. And once you create that culture of people who exclude everything else and only do this super easy stuff that's going to definitely keep them safe, that's the instructor portion of it. That's now done. That's part 1. Part 2 is the students. People who are naive, who want to believe that superheroes exist. They want to believe that they can inevitably keep themselves safe. A get safe quick scheme. That don't have experience in martial arts, that don't have experience in fighting, that have never been in fights, or that want to believe in something bigger than what is possible, or they want to have something be easier than is possible. They want just like what marketing does well, is having something faster or easier or of more value. They're not worried about the value. They're worried about perceived value, maybe. They're worried about what will make them safe easier or will make them safe faster. And that ecosystem feeds those two values. Okay, so that instructor feeds into those two things in a way that is not fair to the students. So that's out of the way now. Now the community. The reason the community allows this to happen. We are doing better about it, about like helping people understand. The internet's great for this. I hope that I do this somehow. Is help people who are the novice, who are into the superhero aspects, who are looking for the get results fast, get results easy concept and mindset. It kind of shines a little bit of light on them. We are doing a little bit better of that as a community. But the reason that it still happens is because, one, they seclude themselves in small towns and community where everybody else excludes them, like doesn't want to be a part of it. As a whole, what happens is if you're not into this little ecosystem, you try and get yourself a little bit further away from it usually. The average person who does martial arts wants nothing to do with McDojo. Like, we sit behind a phone, we laugh at stuff like that. But we don't want to like try and infiltrate it and break it up, because what happens is if you're somebody who dojo storms, you almost never make yourself look good. Like, you're then breaking all the students' hearts, then you're kind of making a bad guy of yourself to go in and just beat somebody up. Like, that's not the code that we live by. So we're still finding this way, and I think the way that we're trying to do it is through information rather than punching and kicking each other in the face, which is, I'm proud of that. I think I'm glad that we're finding a way to do that. But as a community, it doesn't make you look good to go in and fight someone and make them look bad. You will not find a single person who dojo stormed and kicked this guy's butt and then has like a good story to tell about it. So yeah, there you have it. That, in my opinion, is why McDojos still exist. Now, if you want to learn more about McDojos and how you can keep yourself away from them, cool McDojo stories, follow Rob at McDojo Life on his YouTube channel over here.
Hopefully you guys enjoyed the rules. Keep the martial arts legit.
If you have any questions on how you can make sure you're not signing up for a McDojo or make sure you feel safe about what you're learning and practicing, you can always DM me on Instagram. I'm happy to help. I'm happy to look into it. Not that I am like the almighty decider of all things good and bad, but if I have some information to shed for you, then I will happily do so. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know down below why you think McDojos still exists. Make sure you hit the like button, make sure you comment, and if you don't subscribe, you know the deal. I'm hiding this leg. Which one's it gonna be, right or left? Make a decision, right or left. If you don't subscribe, I'll kick you. Bang! So what we're gonna do today is I'm gonna make a list of different things that make a martial arts style legit or not legit. And when I say that, I mean like if you have 3 or more of these things, it's probably a pretty legit style. But if you have less than 3 of these things,